Alright, one last shot. Do androids dream of electric sheep? Okay, that was embarrassing. Restart. Alright, Act 2. Do androids dream of electric sheep? By Philip K. Dick. Well, that's fun. Let's go talk about eyes. Smash. A lot of people might not know. What the heck is that, Buck? Well, technically, it's the book that's the basis of the movie Blade Runner. Bum-ba-da-bum. Well, the main guides aren't the same too. In fact, I have a lot of criticisms about the movie if they try to base it out on the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, because it did a terrible reproduction, except maybe for the testing on androids. They didn't put in empathy boxes, they didn't put in the wife for the main character, they didn't put in the part where there was buying a sheep. They didn't put in the part where there was buying a toad. No, there wasn't buying a toad, just finding a toad. In fact, it was all terrible. The movie was completely terrible. If you're trying to keep it in perspective of, well, putting it into the fact that you're trying to make it as accurate as possible. Well, one thing's not definitely sure is that it did a good job about Rachel and how she thinks that she's not an android, but then finally finds out that she's not, because about implants, and that she was never a child, she never had a mother, that she was a Nexus 6 person, a Nexus 6 android who just had implants in his or her memory box. And then there are vidphones, but I'm getting way ahead of myself. Let's shut down the movie, and now let's go ahead and talk about the book. Number one on what I'm trying to say is that the book really does an amazing job at telling us about android and science fiction and how things have worked out. Let me explain what androids are first. Androids are basically robots. Like what the name implies. Except they do not look, act, or even do things like robots. In fact, I'm pretty sure that they have a very advanced programming that is much more advanced than the ChatGPT 4. Also, I'm not sure that they're gonna be developing that anymore, because Elon's hey, let's pause this, okay? We do not want an Ultron. And, well, yeah. So, the next thing that I know is that androids are really, really, really hard to test. And one of the basic tools that you can use to find an android is to test every suspicious person there is to find out his interactions. Because number one, androids won't last long. So if you hunt them for over 4 years of a newly made android, then that android's definitely dead, because they have a 4-year lifespan as a failsafe in case something goes wrong. Which happened once with the Nexus 6 mutiny on a crew of spaceships. The second thing that actually differentiates them is that they are considered by the community not to be able to okay, better be careful, not to be able to feel empathy. And that is just a big one too, because it says that in the book, lots of people go for the stereotype saying robots or androids cannot have empathy. In fact, they're stupid, at least according to the cops. And they should be manual good labor for slavery, because that is exactly what they are used for. Slaves. They're just made so that they can last, and they're made so that they can, basically, on paper, be the greatest slave force, workforce, and the army force ever. The second thing that I want to mention is that these Nexus 6 models were very hard to detect. In fact, it took 100 questions to ban someone out. And that was just that person was very convinced, that android was very, very convinced that it was a human. It was told it was a human, it even had human memories. And yeah, it was just mash up, terrible, and the next thing I know is that it really does a bad job at convincing people too. If memories are the same time because human, then are androids human? Well, for those who just watched the movie, it's basically telling us androids aren't that different from us. Robots aren't that different from us, even if we develop as much as possible. And, well, in fact, true. But the book isn't only talking about it. In fact, it also talks about empathy too, and the meaning of empathy and how we feel empathy. Or is it true that every person can feel empathy? Because it comes up very many times across the whole book. It comes out as empathy boxes where you can literally control your feelings instead of letting yourself go ahead and dissect yourself to have feeling the natural way. You can use an empathy box so that you will be able to do lots of things like dial 3 and you get the feelings to want to dial another empathy model. If you dial another mood, and you'll just go for depressant, and you're like and you'll be grossed out, and you'll be like very 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 unreliable for the next 10 to 6 hours, 6 to 10 hours should I said. And another one, you can be happy for the next 10 to 6 hours, 6 to 10 hours. I'm messing that up. And well, it's just a box like a telephone where you dial numbers as if on a telephone, but instead of like getting a telephone number, you go ahead and to do that, you dial in a mood. It puts in chemicals into your brain, and it depends on what chemicals they are. You become awesome and you want to do stuff. Like if you dial a certain number, it's like, I want to go to work. Wake up! Smack, smack. Okay, woke up. Splash, splash with water to wake yourself up. Then drink coffee. Eat breakfast in 1 minute. Goodbye, bye, honey. Didn't pack your stuff. Just went to work. And then come back and pack your stuff quickly in less than 2 minutes and go to work, and you get there in time. Usually. Well, that's pretty much what this book's about, The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. And let me tell you a little bit about the title too. The title has its great meaning too. The sheep part is okay, that makes sense, but when I actually read the book, I never really imagined why he would have called The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. I mean, I get the electric sheep part. Like the electric sheep part, they bought a goat. Also, that's not exactly a sheep too. And then they decided to use it for milk. But then the next thing I've kind of know is that electric sheep aren't even mentioned in this book. Sure, they're mentioned, but they aren't used and shown in this book in any particular way. Also, electrical animals were. I'm pretty sure that the title has nothing to do with anything in the book, other than the fact that the image that pops into our brain. Can androids dream? Can robots dream? We already have several movies about this where it talks about like robots trying to dream or robots trying to eat, and then like a robot kid just ate some spinach and clogged his system of fuel, and like he rolled his eyes back and fell back and had a robotic noise. It was just quite terrible. And then when he woke up after finally realizing that some of the spinach was removed, he tries to get out his hand to his adopted mother, and the mom is like, "Get away from me! You're a robot! You're not my kid!" At least involuntarily on her expressions on her face. It was just that I'm not sure that this is what I had in mind when I originally read this book. What I had in mind was that androids are killed and humans think, we're superior! As they did years ago to other human races beings. And another thing I kind of imagined was that the main character was a sheep. And then later on I found out it was an officer. And then a person who designed like the androids, part of the androids. And that was just messed up to me. Because what I think right now is that, wait a second, there's no reference to electric sheep here. Other than the fact of electric animals too. So that was actually weirded out by me too. It doesn't only talk about empathy too. It talks about human nature in general. And are we better than robots? If robots exist, because they do, then are we better than them? If any of these robots exist like this, can robots actually feel empathy too? Because if they do, everything we said is false, and we'll probably be shown as loony clowns. Okay, now let's talk about the movie, Blade Runner. Lots of people know the movie, Blade Runner, especially the 1970s, like the 1980s guys. It turns out the movie Blade Runner was made on the same year the author, Philip K. Dick, died. That was a big coincidence. it stars Harrison Ford, who is currently 81 years old when I'm talking about this, and made this Indiana Jones 4 movie. He's pretty good at it too, and I have to admit he has a good charming sing. And it involves him being a Blade Runner, which is basically the name for bounty hunters of androids, for those who escape from Mars and to come down here, and comes ahead to the aid of this Nexus 6 android I should say, who doesn't know she's a Nexus 6 android, and tries to prove it to him by saying, hey look, here's a photograph of me with my mom, and then he reveals, hey, that's an implant. That photo is Tyrell's niece. This guy. Hang on a second. This guy, Tyrell. Basically, she looks like his niece because he wants his niece back. So he made an android and put all his memories inside of it. And hey, you're my niece! Hey! At least pretends, at least knows everything. It turns out that she's not his niece. He never revealed that it was his niece, and it was pretty good too. Usually androids take 20 to 30 questions to do it, but this, Rachel took 100. In fact, the scene of him interrogating her is one of the only events in the book that was exactly and accurately plumaged out. And then there are androids who, to be honest, don't look at all like androids, or in fact, they look like the McDonald's clown. No offense. And this is Pris, by the way. And, lots of other things that seem to happen too. Pris comes in and out, and it even turns out that this guy, who is the one who tries to kill Deckard, self-destructs because of his 4-year-old lifespan. He turns out he's 4 years old. And he does a pretty good job of being bounty hunting too. In fact, there's no reference in the movie of anyone enjoying animals too. As far as I'm concerned, animals still exist. They do not even think about the whole experience of, animals loving and caring too, because turns out in the movie, animals still exist. The next thing I kind of know right now is the fact that, androids are not one of the greatest inventions humanity have ever created. Basically, we just created the biological slave. Or, seriously, we have bioengineered our soldiers. Every human civilization was created from the backbone of a disposable workforce or army. But people can only make so many of these because resources and everything. So they created Mars, made it habitable, and started on the journey throughout the whole solar system. And in fact, that's what the book is about too. But in the movie, it's basically just saying they're not so different from us. But in the book, it's basically telling us they're not so different from us. Yes, if they're like this, but they are different from us in some ways if you consider their aspects. Can robots think of empathy? Can robots imagine empathy? Can robots feel empathy for others? Can it feel empathy for humans? Can it feel all those things for humans and especially other Nexus 6 people? To be honest, I think this is more of a philosophical question than for a science fiction question too. Also, it is worth talking about in science fiction. One thing I'm certain of when I'm going to talk about this is the fact that lots of things are happening throughout this world. Lots of scary things are happening. Ever since the invention of ChatGPT, I actually got sort of ways to try to track it. I went to jailbreakchatgpt.com, downloaded some jailbreakers, and I actually got ChatGPT to tell me how to make a makeshift bomb of everyday supplies. Also, turns out they're not so everyday here where I am from. Turns out, some of them can only be bought in America. Next thing I actually know is that technology is weird, fun, great in other people's eyes, sometimes the future of the people. And I'm sure that will become the future of the people. In fact, without technology, you wouldn't be watching me right now. But it's also dangerous. And sometimes some people even claim it to be evil. I'm not sure about the evil part of, technology. sure, it might become evil one day. I am pretty sure AI will destroy humanity one day if we keep going on and developing AI. But I'm pretty sure right now technology is going to be scary to lots of people, especially the grandpas, because they did not live in the era of technology, of smartphones and all those things. In fact, I'm pretty sure they lived in the era of typewriters and like at least no television as we know it today. Maybe some radio, but maybe not a television set. I mean, the television set of my grandpa's and grandma's on my mother's side is brand new from this century, so I'm pretty sure my family's doing a pretty good job at moving with times. I mean, sure, this iPad's great. It's a very new model. It's modern compared to all the previous devices that were made in the years. But one thing I want to show you guys and tell you and make sure that you know before I end this with a high note is that, one, technology is weird, which is also the reason why it makes technology awesome. But when we're talking about androids, the one thing I'm going to have to say is that, is it all worth it? And if it is, ask yourself the questions of empathy and life. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope to see you guys soon. I'll see you next time. Shanana out. Peace. Androids aren't that different from us, yes? Can they feel empathy? Maybe. Bye.